Well, the topic today is strategic boosters, how to thrive, not just survive. Is it fair to say that much of the time we feel like at best we're just kind of holding on for dear life and surviving in our booster clubs? Yeah, I think that's a very common sensation across the country. So the good news for you is it's not you, you're not alone, and then hopefully we'll try to address some things today while you're here. To help in all of that. But you know, everything in education is about assessment. So you know, if it's going to be something positive, then we have to make sure there's some assessment that goes on. So we have to, you know, any good educator would make sure there's a pre-test and a post-test. So we have to start with a pre-test. And wouldn't you know, my presenter clicker worked perfect in the hotel last night. And then when you go to click it on today, it's like, what? You want me to work? So we'll see. This may be really awkward. That shouldn't be, but we'll keep going. So, are you ready? If you have your workbook, you'll see on the top left corner there's a blank page, but it says pre-test assessment or something kind of in the, when you get past the table of contents, there it is, boom, on your left side. Now, you can do any direction, turn your book, do whatever you want. Now, ladies and gentlemen, all eyes here. All eyes here. You are to do your own work. Your eyes are not to wander. You may not talk in this process. It is not required. It is not necessary for your success. Okay? Here we go. I just felt blood pressures rise. Okay, so the pretest is, I want you to do your very best rendering of a pig. P-I-G. That's right, you heard it correctly. Draw your best version of a pig. Keeping your eyes on your own paper. Do we have teachers that are in the room? Okay. I brought a few extra because the folks had. Sure. That's the only. I just brought a few extras, so I'm sorry. Maybe you can. No, it's a teacher. Yeah. I'll. You can email me later and we'll touch base on anything if you need. Okay, so you're in the middle of your pig personality profile. I hear some talking. I already addressed that. Apple tree, apple tree. No, just kidding. I bet the buzz works really nice for the camera side of life too. It's a nice resonating hum. Okay. How many of you need more time? There's always one. No, just kidding. It's all good. So here we go. This is what we can learn from our pre-test assessment. Okay, if the pig you drew is on the top portion of the page, it might imply you're a bit optimistic and very positive. If you drew the pig in the middle of the page, it might imply that you're a little bit of a realist and like the facts. If the pig is drawn towards the bottom of the page, it might imply you're a bit pessimistic and have a tendency to look at things with a little bit of negativity. If the pig is facing to the left, it means you believe in tradition, you're friendly, you remember birth dates and important and significant calendar dates. If the pig is facing to the right, it might imply that you're a bit innovative, you're action-oriented, not necessarily too family or birthday date driven. If the pig is facing straight ahead, it might imply you're a little bit direct and you like to play the devil's advocate and you don't avoid the issues. If the pig is very detailed, it might imply that you have a strong tendency to analytics. You're a little bit cautious and maybe even suspicious. If the pig has little details, it means you might have a tendency to be on the emotional side, get bored with the details, might be a bit naive, and a risk taker. Now, how about the feet? Feet, you say. If your pig has all 4 feet, it might mean you have a tendency to be a little bit stubborn in your ways and have firm beliefs. Now, if your pig has less than 4 feet, it might mean you're feeling a little bit insecure this week or going through a major crisis in life. Now, how about the ears? The bigger the ears, the better listener you are. Those of you who forgot the ears, you're at music for all, for heaven's sake. Okay. And last but not least, I didn't write it, I'm just sharing it with you, deals with the tail. The longer the tail, the more curly the tail, might have some implication regarding your love and romantic life. If you forgot the tail, sorry for you. Okay. Now, how many of you might say all this little giggle moment is because it's a little humorous, but there's a little bit on that page that is a little bit like you, and some of that silliness about drawing a pig, for goodness sake, kind of pegged me right between the eyes. That fit anybody in the room? Yeah, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Well, here's why that's a fun activity for us. You can Google pig personality profile online, and you can find this and do this with your own booster club. It's a great little activity. But what it does is I think it shows us all that in a very easy, non-scientific way, we can discover that we definitely do have differences, and we can look at the reality of there are really some things about us that make us different. Okay? And it's like your relationships at home, probably. It's those differences that you draw nigh to each other, but there are also those differences that just drive you insane sometimes. And we have that in our booster clubs too, don't we? Yeah. So we're going to talk about some of this and how we can really work to build strategically in our booster clubs how to get past the survival world and how to thrive. And if you look on your little puzzle here, there are lots of things that I believe that go into a successful booster club that really thrives. And it's multifaceted. And so if you look and just do kind of a what if scenario, that's page 5 in your book, in your workbook. But if you were trying to evaluate and score your program, I want you to think about it in this context. In this category, if you feel like there's very little evidence, give yourself 0 points. If you feel like, yeah, we have some organizational health, there's evidence to it. I won't say that we're like off the chart there. That's 1 point. And if you say, yeah, we're really great at that, we've got that topic covered really strong, there's great evidence to that, that'd be a 2-pointer. Okay? So in your puzzle, score and evaluate your organization and give a point structure to each of the categories. Either 0, we're not very good in that caption, we have a little bit, but it's not really strong. 1, if it's like we're pretty good. And 2, if we're off the chart, really doing great in that category. So just kind of do a self-assessment. Take a few seconds to look at that. And then when you're finished, add up all the numbers together and give yourself a score in the bottom left corner of the page. So we've got a variety of topics here, don't we? We have modern roles and responsibilities. We have organizational health. Do we have an army of volunteers? Do we communicate effectively? Is there a strategic plan? Do we have a management tool or an idea of how to manage our volunteers? Do we have a business blueprint? Do we have detailed planning guides? Are there project teams where people are working effectively, efficiently, and collaboratively? Do we have governmental compliance? Do we have action plans? And do we market our brand? Here's the bottom line. Most of our organizations across the country are functioning today, if it existed 10 years ago, about the same way it did 10 years ago. Because here's the challenge. We are volunteer parents who have jobs in real life. We have other children probably than just the one that's in. I didn't get to look at the Padlet yet, but how many of us are here to support band? We're at Music for All. I'm supposing that's all of us. Do we support other entities too, like orchestra or chorus? A few of us do. Okay, anybody outside of the music realm that just happened to come load up? Yep.
I do all 3 plus Scoutmaster.
Oh, great. Okay, so I think a lot of this, as a former Boy Scout as well, I think a lot of this can apply directly to as well, because you're dealing with the same issues in volunteerism. So it's my belief that we just kind of function in the status quo because that's the way we've always done it, and life keeps moving full speed ahead because the train never stops. Okay? So my question for you today is, what would happen in your organization if you made an intentional decision to say, okay, wait a minute. We're doing okay here. Our kids are doing well. We're supporting them. But what could we do if we made a conscious effort to assess some things, to explore some things, and really make it a great effort together to thrive and not just survive? What could we do? So, if you've totaled up your scores, okay, you can kind of see the compendium of where we are, a 1 to 24. 24 means you are thriving and everything is awesome. We're going to want to make sure that we hear from you today and how things are going in your program and how we can share. If we're just kind of striving to thrive, we're going to kind of be in the middle. And if we're just barely hanging on, you might find yourself closer to the lower number here, okay? So where you feel like you are in the compendium is important through just some general assessment issues. So let's watch a little video that I think will help us kind of set up. If we're going to thrive, we need to put together a plan, and we need to come up with a way to accomplish something new.
Introduction. Why you need a strategy, 5 reasons to plan. Developing strategy takes time and resources. It takes the time and commitment of some of the most highly paid and highly experienced people in your organization. So if your team is not willing to invest the necessary time, we recommend you don't do it. Poor planning is often worse than not planning at all. However, if you are similar to the hundreds of organizations with whom we have worked, and you recognize how taking the time to develop strategy is not only necessary, but critical to the long-term success and health of your organization, the next step is to determine how, and then actually do it. Hi, I'm Michael Wilkinson, founder of Leadership Strategies, the facilitation company.
Now, I don't know Michael, and I don't endorse Michael. He's got a great video that lays it out easy.
Ongoing strategic plans and processes that drive better thinking, better decisions, and better results. In our strategic planning work, our planning roadmap is called the driver's model, which is described in my book, The Executive Guide to Facilitating Strategy. So why do you need a strategy? Why take time for planning? There are many reasons, but the driver's model focuses on 5 in particular. First and foremost, you need a strategy because it sets a direction and establishes priorities for your organization. Your strategy defines your organization's view of success and outlines the priority activities you must complete to make this view your reality. The strategy will help your people know what they should be working on and what they should be working on first. But without a clearly defined and articulate strategy, you may very well find that your priority initiatives, the ones that will drive the highest success, are being given secondary treatment. Second, you need a strategy to get everyone in your organization on the same page. If you find that you have departments working to achieve different aims or going in different directions, you need a strategy. Once you define your strategic direction, you can get operations, sales, marketing, administration, manufacturing, and all other departments moving together to achieve the goals of the organization. Third, a strategy can simplify decision making. If your leadership team is having trouble saying no to new ideas, potential initiatives, etc., you need a strategy. Why? Because as mentioned earlier, your strategy will have clearly outlined the priority activities you must complete to achieve success. Once you are clear on what your priority initiatives are, it makes it much easier to say no to those potential initiatives that will pull you off your focus. Fourth, a strategy drives alignment. Many organizations have hardworking people putting their best efforts into areas that have little to no impact on strategic success. They are essentially majoring in the minors because their activities aren't aligned with the priorities. Your strategy serves as the vehicle for answering the question, how can we better align all of our resources to maximize our strategic success? Finally, a strategy helps you clarify and communicate the message. Many leaders walk around with a virtual strategy locked in their heads. They know where their organization needs to be and the key activities that will get it there. Unfortunately, the strategy is not down on paper and hasn't been communicated thoroughly. As a result, few people are acting on it. When your staff, your suppliers, and even your customers know where you're going, there are even greater opportunities for people to help you maximize your success in getting there. So to summarize, why do you need a strategy? To set direction and priorities, to get everyone on the same page, to simplify decision making, to drive alignment, and finally, to communicate the message.
Leadership strategy.
So what speaks to you? Any triggers or alarms or little thought processes go and fire as you were hearing some of that as it relates to your booster club?
I get out of the term be proactive and not reactive, and so much of what we do as a booster is reactive, and because of the lack of volunteers and time and whatnot, but just get a group and focus, get your priorities in order, you can be proactive on the front end, and it sure will help you in the back.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Someone else have a thought going off as you're hearing that, watching that?
The main message being in somebody's head, either the director's head or the booster executive committee's head, and not having it laid out there for our volunteers. Getting, so everybody knows, that's our plan, this is what we do. So getting it out there.
Anybody remember being that freshman parent walking into the first booster club meeting going, oh dear Lord, what have I got myself into? Or we kind of sit back and go, I have no idea what's going on. It's a little scary, isn't it?
I think maybe communicating the message of where you're headed, but also make sure they know why you're headed there. What's the importance of it?
And we're going to
It's
talk a
one
lot
thing to
about that
say,
today. You're
"We wanna do
correct.
this," but to really explain why are you trying to do that? Why is it important to your organization?
And unfortunately, too many times we don't know the answers to that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Turn that off.
Anything else?
It's new and I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
I like the benefit of the strategy, the selling point on it simplifies decision making that go beyond me needing to be the one to always have to make every decision. If everybody knows where we're going and what we're doing and why we're doing it, then I don't have to be the one to be involved in every part.
That's huge. When I first developed this whole idea of Boosters to the Rescue, my wife said that's the best thing that ever happened to our relationship. Because this is year 28 in education for me. So for the first 20 years of my life, I was a secondary band director. And for 16 years was director of bands at Harrison High School. We've played at Midwest a couple of times. We've been Grand National finalists. Went to university world for 4 years, and I'm now the coordinator of a large district of music, coordinator of music, and performing arts is my official title, but really it's K-12 music. For a large district in Atlanta, we serve 100,000 students. So I have 200 teachers, one of which Tark is here, so he can tell you the real skinny behind it all. But so here's my commitment to you. Come on in. My commitment to you is a lot of times we hear theories, and a lot of times we hear theoretical information. I'm sharing today not in the context of this is the only way, but I can tell you this is a way that worked and has worked for us in a real life band program just like yours. And so everything is tried and true and tested and proven over a long period of time. And as I said, Pamela said the first time we started doing this and started developing the program, life for us became stronger because we took, for example, we had a Taste of Kennesaw. And it was an event that there was a large committee of about 20 to 25 people. They met monthly for an entire year. But the positive was we had one day event for our whole entire community, and we raised about $30,000 on a single day. So it was worth it. But once we implemented many of the things that we're going to share throughout the course of today, I went to every meeting in year one. Year two, I went to the opening meeting and thanked everyone for their willingness to serve, and I went to the event a year later. So that means people were empowered and there were processes in place so that things could actually take place and become effective and efficient. So that's my commitment to you today, is that This is not theory. This is not to say this is the only way to do it, but to at least let you know that it's backed up with fact. And so one of the things that I think is important in developing this process for us is we tried to ask and assess 3 major questions across as much of the program as possible. Okay? Where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? Okay, that's on page 6 of your workbook if you're following along. Where are we? Where do we want to be? And how are we going to get there? If we're supporting marching band, where's the marching band? Where do we want the marching band to be? And how are we going to strategically decide how we're going to get there? Okay, there's lots of facets to that discussion though, right? Okay, if we, the marching band's had some success, but we want to have a little more quantifiable success so that the students in the community get behind it and everyone feels like the amount of effort that they're putting into it matches the reward factor. I mean, that's the real life, right? That everybody needs to make sure they're getting their gratification needs out of it. And sometimes that's easier to quantify with success. So if perhaps where we are with the marching band, where we want to be, means we need to position ourselves to be a little more competitively successful, maybe that means when we look at our last 3 years of scores, our percussion caption is noticeably lower than our other. So maybe that means we might need to try to find someone to help with band camp or to come in during the season and provide additional supplemental percussion help. Okay, well that's a director-driven decision of where are we, where we want to be, but what that means from a booster club's context is, okay, then how would we fund that? How do we support that? How would we provide that kinds of thing? So part of what makes our world difficult is that there's always a multifaceted dimension to every problem we're trying to solve. And that makes life a little more difficult too because we are dealing with volunteers, right? So, where are we? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? And then how will we evaluate it to know if we have arrived? Okay? So where are we? Where do we want to be? How will we get there? How will we evaluate it? And then finally, how will we improve? And I think to really make this process work effectively and efficiently, it's going to be a 3 to 5 year process. I'm not going to say at Harrison, we started implementing this and the next year, boom, life was all sunshine. I can say things were better. We created a road race. We made $1,000 the first year. The same 2 gentlemen working on that project together started implementing the things and the tools that we're going to suggest to you throughout the course of the day. And the very next year, the same people running the same event made $4,000. Now, let me ask you, isn't it easier to figure out how we can make more money with the same fundraiser than create a new fundraiser? Absolutely, absolutely. So maybe it's not about what else can we do. Maybe it's about asking these critical questions about that which we're already doing. Where are we? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? How will we evaluate it? How will we improve? And then we just start asking that successfully across more and more aspects of the program. And I would say, think about it being a 3 to 5 year process. Okay? So the whole ready, set, go. We have a few things that we can reflect upon. But we talk about to accomplish this, we need to define who we are. We need to develop or set up a strategic plan. And then go is getting down to business. So we're going to cover those aspects here. Defining who you are. Your organization is a very unique entity. It has its own DNA, if you will. Okay? You're different than any organization on your campus. But who are you? Okay? Who are you? First off, this is the hardest. You've spent probably 8 years of your child's education with your primary objective being what? Your child, your honey, your baby, your angel, making sure that they get everything that's best for them. And suddenly, voila, you get to high school and you're a band booster, and we have to help you understand that, honey, it ain't about your baby anymore. It is about our children's, and they're all ours. And mine is just as important as yours. That's difficult. that is a paradigm shift for most parents. Okay? But that's an important element of the success, that we start developing a we us mentality, and it takes intention to do so. Okay? Then we want to surround ourselves with talent. If we're going to have this really cool prop for the halftime show, you do not want me building it. I'm just saying. So that means we got to find some talent. Okay? Then we've got to engage people in creating loyalty to the program. And we have to have strategic planning with action. Band parents are really good, well, not just band parents, but we're really good at meeting and eating and telling everybody about how other people should do their job. Have you ever found out, maybe this was just at Harrison, but have you ever been to a Booster Club meeting and having this sensation of deja vu? Weren't we just talking about this same thing last month and the month before? Oh, good, that wasn't just Harrison. Well, too much happens, right? And so one of the things we need to do is start developing within our organization action plans. Okay, and then we have to get a little bit uncomfortable and create some accountability. And that's really difficult to do in a volunteer organization, isn't it? Okay, really difficult to do. So the final part of it becomes ownership. Yes?
One quick second first.
Sure.
Can we get this PowerPoint?
No, but I can probably help with, if there's some things that you want to miss along the way, you can fill in.
I'm starting to take notes, but I do better if I'm paying attention.
No,
I was going to ask before I got to the end of the day, and I'm scribbling, and here's the PowerPoint. If you don't get it, then I just use the notes.
Yeah, the publisher won't let me
No problem.
release all of that context. No, I appreciate that though. And that's the balance. There's a lot of data, and I sometimes, if I'm worrying about getting all the data, I'm not always getting the context. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Dave,
Yeah,
let me be the marketing person for you.
okay.
How much of this is in the 2 books? I just purchased the 2 books. I haven't even had a chance to crack the book except to flip through really quick.
Well, I can tell you that everything that we're sharing, not everything, but largely, and all the concepts and the big picture elements are in the books.
Okay.
And what's nice about the 2 books from my perspective, since you're asking, is that,
Now, if he didn't pay me,
yeah, he's not a plant. He's not a plant. Okay, so for me, as a band director, life is too difficult, there's too much time to reinvent the wheel. So one of my, there are lots of great books out there, and we'll talk about many of them that have influenced me. But by the time we can take a book and implement the ideas in a book, life has moved on. So in both of the books, you'll get, on the inside cover, there's a download customizable file. So everything that's in here, everything we're going to talk about in the 2 books, the strategic planning, all that stuff is downloadable. When you buy the books, you get the files, and you can download and customize and edit or use. So to me, that's the benefit of the 2 books, to be honest, is that not only do you get the information, but you get the how to make it work in real time. So thank you for that question. $44, and I may find a way to help you with that a little bit at the end of the day if you're still here. Okay, so page 7. Page 7, okay, is a little bit of assessment time. Ask yourself the 2 questions at the top. 5 characteristics you believe to be strengths of your organization. And then 3 events or tasks in your organization you believe you do well. Okay? 5 characteristics you believe to be your strengths, and a few events that you believe your organization does well. And part of this assessment, it's okay if we get to the point where we go, I'm not sure if we do things. Maybe we're a young organization, or maybe we used to be highly effective, and one of the reasons you're here is because the bottoms dropped out, and the 3 people in the organization that knew what was going on all graduated, and that's kind of where I was when all this started. Sarah graduated, which meant Liz Her mother graduated, who had been every officer in the entire organization for the 10 years prior. Now, you know how you talk about go with your gut, okay? So there's a list of modifiers at the bottom of the page. And I don't want you to overthink it. I just want you to, you don't have to address every one of them. But if you are ambivalent, just keep reading. But if there's something that you feel like, oh yeah, we're definitely good at that, give it a plus. Or you go, ooh, no, we're weak in that, give it a minus. So not everything might have a notation, but just kind of scan that list quickly. And if you see something that really says, this is my strength, give it a plus. If you go, ooh, we got to fix that, that's a weakness, give it a minus. But don't overthink it, don't overanalyze it, just go with whatever your initial reaction is. Take about 60 seconds to review those modifiers. Anybody want to share out? What are some characteristics of your organization that you think are strengths? All right, I'm going to do it this way. On the count of 3, everybody together say 1. 1, 2, 3. And another one. 1, 2, 3. And another one. 1, 2, 3. Good. So part of our success today is going to be us being willing to share with each other and benefit in that. Who can say, as I look at these modifiers, the 2 things that jump out at me as weaknesses we can improve on are? Anyone? Bueller. Anyone?
Community focus.
Okay.
Visionary.
Okay. Right. What was that? Delegation. Yeah. All right, cool. So hopefully some of these resources that we have here in the workbook are to give you a chance to reflect and have discussion with your peers when you get back home, okay? Look at this next page, organizational effectiveness. Now we're going to all just kind of vote with our hand, okay? So we're going to say 1, everybody, 1 is weak, 5 is great, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you get to vote numerically with your hand. If this is where we are versus this is where we want to be, we have established clear priorities and strategic plans that are well developed, shared, and understood. Vote. 5, that's a very true statement. 1 is not at all. Okay, good. That helps me kind of get an idea where our programs are. Organizational effectiveness is evaluated on a regular basis to diagnose and prescribe success and weakness elements. Okay? Members are highly active and involved in the choices that affect their own work and take responsibility, accountability for their results. All right, that's interesting. A lot of us feel pretty, at least we're on a good path of that. Members consistently seek new and innovative ways to improve the quality product or service of the organization. Okay, good. And there's a strong commitment to continuing training and learning to better enhance the program. Yeah, I was going to say, there's most organizations have very little training about how to do what we do or why we do it, interestingly enough. The morale and spirit of the organization encourages trust and mutual respect that serves as a foundation for the win-win outcomes and achievement. All right, good. So there's a few of us that are like, woo, we got to work on that one, and some of us we feel okay. What I did notice, and why you're probably here, but I do think is very true, is I saw very few 5s and very few like, yeah, we got that, right? Okay? And so that means we're all at least striving to surviving, but in some elements we feel like, yeah, okay, we thrive in that part of the area. And I think that's pretty normal. There are some things that thrive in our organizations, but my unscientific research across the country is that most of the things are thriving out of sheer luck and happenstance, or what is thriving because someone's been there for a long time and has refined that process out of their own volunteerism and not because of the organization itself. And that's where I found myself with Liz back when I said that, okay, well, someone graduated and I needed to make sure that I needed a uniform chair. And I was like, started picking up the phone and said, hey, this is V. I need a we need someone to help with the uniforms this year. Would you be willing to help? And what's the first question that Tom's going to ask me?
How much time does it take?
How much time? What do I got to do? I don't know. I'm the band director. You know, I mean, I know what my drum major is supposed to do. I know what I want my section leaders to do. Okay? But what's human nature on your end? I'm not going to commit to squat if I don't know up front what I got to do and how much time it's going to take. Right? And so, we wonder why we have problems finding volunteers. So, if that's where we want to be, we have to figure out how we're going to get there. And some of that's through organizational effectiveness. But most of it's through strategic planning. Okay? So, what is a strategic plan? They happen in corporations, they happen in schools, they happen all across our business communities, but we tend to ignore the fact that we would benefit by having one as an organization. And I would say this is the same for band directors that are in the room and our organizations. We need to have strategic plans for our programs, whether it is our instructional unit or our volunteer unit. Okay? I would give this same staff development for my teachers as far as it relates to their programs, if you would, from this next module of strategic planning. Okay? Oh, my clicker decided to turn on. Yay! Okay, so you can see here we've got this little circle of what is a strategic plan? We have to have a purpose and a mission. We have to have declared goals. Okay? Goals and strategies. Then we have to have action plans that we can monitor and evaluate. Now, some of us, we do really good. We create these action plans, and then we go away, and then the event shows up, and we go, well, how come something didn't happen? We talked about it. We forgot the critical stage of monitoring it in process. Okay? So even if we get to the point where we have goals and strategies, you're way ahead of the game for most. And then if we get actions going, we still have to make sure we're monitoring those actions. Okay? And then we evaluate and improve. So let's break this down a little bit more from if we're going to create the strategic plan, I'm going to kind of cycle through this part of it, and then we can come back and if we have questions, we will. But basically, you want to create the introduction, and it's going to be just a basic, this can be used, I think, for your organization and the parents that come in so that we can indoctrinate them, if you will, into why we're here and what our purpose is. But it's also great for community, for administrators, and corporate sponsors to show we're not just a mom and pop school group. We have a great strategic plan. This is what we're about. This is how we're going to go about accomplishing it, and we would value your support. So by the time we develop this document, we're going to be able to function effectively with our school administration and within our community. Okay? So when we start it, the introductory statements really are very simple. They're just kind of defining who the organization is. It might say something like, the strategic plan has been developed by Central High School Academic Booster Organization in order to provide a systematic approach to the management of Central High Academic Booster Organization over the next 3 academic years, period beginning in the fall of 2017. Okay? We're not talking about complex stuff. Then you want to give a history of the organization. At Harrison, when the school opened, there was a band and orchestra parent organization, and it morphed. Okay? So when was the Booster Club formed? What led to it being formed? What are the key changes that have occurred over time? How's the group governed? What's the board structure? I.e., do you have board of directors? Do you have managers? Do you have ex officio people on the community, on the committee? Management board. Outline that structure so they can see that you've got voting, non-voting members, particularly the ex officio area. Okay? Robert's Rules of Order defines an ex officio person. This is a myth. They can either be voting members or not voting members. A lot of us tend to have them be not voting members, but that's up to you, however you set up your bylaws. It's not a rule that they can't vote unless that's what your rule is, but you should know that. There's a myth out there a lot of times that they can't vote. Well, they can, it just depends on how you set it up, okay? But here's the benefit of ex officio members. How many of you have had that person that's been the Booster Club president for years and then their kid graduates, and if Bill was just here, we would be able to answer this question quickly because he had that knowledge, and now he's gone. Well, let Bill be an ex officio member of the board. And if you don't want him to be a voting member because they don't have a child in the program, that's fine. But an ex officio is someone outside the organization that has contributing knowledge that would benefit the organization. Okay? One of the things that I used to do every summer is I'd go spend a large chunk of time in the self-help section at Barnes & Noble. Because all these things we're talking about are very business-oriented, but I have a music education degree. It doesn't talk very much about being a CEO. In fact, my modern definition of a music educator is this. Are you ready? The CEO of a people-oriented small business with a serious music problem. Because that's what we are. We're CEOs of a people-oriented small business with a serious music problem. But I have zero training in how to be a CEO of a small business. And if you're a parent organization or just some moms and dads that love kids but don't really have a lot of corporate experience, having ex officio board members gives you a way to bring in someone from the community that might have a corporate mindset and understand how business functions. Therefore, their knowledge and expertise might be very beneficial if they're willing to serve because their nephew in the other state is in the band, or because whatever reason you can luck out and suck them in. Just because they don't have a kid in your program doesn't mean that you might not benefit from them. So that might consider, like for me, for a long time, ex officio just meant the band director's an administrator and immediate past president. But when I started investigating that, I thought, well, that's really beneficial and could be helpful. So we have till 10. Is that where we're going? Okay, so I got to make sure I stay on track here to help us get through this module here. I think we're doing fine. So, identify your purpose. We've all gotten along and we're all friends so far in this first session. If I'm going to offend anybody at any point in the presentation for the 5 hours or how many of our hours we're here together, this is the moment where it might happen. I'm going to give you my disclaimer right now. Please don't stomp out and be mad. I might step on your toes, but I promise that it gets easy from here. This is the only moment it might be a little bit awkward. Okay? But I flew on Delta to get here last night. I had to wait a little bit for the thunderstorms in Atlanta to decide what they were going to do before I got here. But I, like many of you, have flown perhaps Delta Airlines or the airline of your choice for at least 30 years. Yeah? Yeah? So I have spent thousands of dollars in tickets and traveled, I can't even begin to think how many thousands of miles. Okay? But for me to walk down the aisle, storm up to the cockpit door, and Mr. Pilot, turn this plane around, I would end up in prison or a rubber room. Agreed? But what makes you think as a band parent you're entitled because you spent lots of money and you work lots of hours to tell the band director how to drive the plane?
Preaching to the choir.
I'm just saying. Now, it's true that's why it happens, because there's no organization on campus where parents invest more money for private lessons, for instruments, for all that stuff, and give more time on behalf of their kid. And there's not another entity that I've discovered in all of business quite like this, where there's a board of directors and a CEO, and they're not answering to each other. That's what makes it really, really strange. Because the superintendent and the board of education hires the faculty member to be the vision caster, policy decision maker, etc. And ladies and gentlemen, your purpose is very simple. I won't say it's easy, but it's simple. To solely promote physical and fiscal support, or ways and means, for the needs of your program beyond what's supplied by the school system. That's it. Now, Just like math, as a taxpayer in your community, you have the opportunity and you're entitled to sharing with your school administration your thoughts on how math should be taught, or what literature might be reviewed in that coursework. But you don't have the right to dictate whether it happens or not. You have a right to express that. And I think this is the same thing. I advocate completely that this should be a huge collaboration. But when it all comes down to it, we're here to provide physical and fiscal support to support the vision laid out by the person the school board hired. Okay? So here's the second part. The band director or school employee hired by the district serves as the chief executive officer for the entire program. And then thirdly, our purpose, the corporation shall seek neither to control or direct the administrative activities of the band, its faculty, or administration, nor control their procedures, operations, or policies. Now, if we have this as our mission statement, our purpose statement, when our freshman parents walk in the door, it's really easy to say, we're here to provide physical and financial support. It's not our job to decide what the vision is, what the policies and procedures are. That's the job. Our job is solely to provide support beyond what the school district can, and it's not our job to try to influence or control those other elements. Plain and simple. And then when those discussions arise, you go, well, you know, I understand why you feel that way, but that's not our purpose. We can go and have discussion with the band director and talk about why the community feels the way it does, but the bottom line is, here's where it usually happens. Dads, don't take offense to this. We need a truck. Got to have a new trailer. I want to raise some money to get a truck. I can get it donated, but I want to spend some money. We need to put up this really great. I've got it all figured out. I got it all sketched out how we can get all that in drums loaded up, and then we can come in and bring the tubas in. It'll be great.
You've been listening into our band conversation.
However, where are we? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? Back to our percussion instruction discussion earlier. Maybe we need to spend that money to get the percussion. Now, granted, things would be more efficient if we had a better truck, a better system, and all of that. But then you hear the stories of, well, I'm not going to raise money for that. I'm not going to approve that in the budget. I'm going to approve about $5,000 for a truck. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to control the purse strings in the budget to influence the procedures and operations and policies and procedures and the vision of the program. Make sense? Are we all still friends? Oh, good. Okay. So that was easy. We survived.
I have about 50 parents that did that.
Yeah. And it's in Article 2, the very first paragraph of the bylaws. And I get it. I totally understand. But let me ask you something. How many of you listen to your neighbor 2 doors down the street and you take their advice and their influence and you let them tell you how to go to your job and you do your job the way they tell you to? No. You might be the best Morton salt salesman in the entire country. But that doesn't mean that you're going to tell me how I need to be the band director and answer to my principal and superintendent. And none of you would do the same thing. None of you would put your job on the line based on the expectation or demand of your neighbor. But when you place that on your band directors, that's what you're doing. You're saying, I know better than you, and you should listen to me, and what I'm going to tell you impacts how you do your job, how you're perceived as being successful or not. And we wouldn't take that advice from anybody else. So, yeah.
How often do you review this information with your group?
Oh, we'll talk about that some too.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's the key. we got to get this stuff written down. Then once we have it written down, we can become effective. One of those puzzle pieces was effective communication, right? And so as we have our core values, which never change, how we implement them will sometimes change. These are short written statements. So we've got our purpose statement, our core values, and a mission statement we're going to talk about next. But once we have those three things, then we can publish them ad nauseum in newsletters, on websites. We can talk about them at every Booster Club meeting. It just becomes part of our DNA as we talk about it and empower people. And then when these types of discussions come up and George gets all bent because he wants to buy a truck, then all you got to say, yeah, George, that would be helpful. But right now, Mr. Thompson says the percussion is the biggest priority at this moment, and our job is to provide the physical support for his vision. And if that's not it, we need to table that and find a way to get the percussion done. Now, if you think the truck idea is really important, then let's talk about that too. But we have to make sure that we get the percussion need met, and then let's figure out how to do the truck. Does that make sense? So as we communicate these, once we create them, then it becomes very powerful in the process of the organization. Core statements. I'm just going to punch a bunch of these up. I'll let you read them. Anything in those core values that, like, boy, that wouldn't work for me.
Do you care to go back?
Yeah.
Just, thank you.
Education is essential learning development of all students. We want our students to have greater understanding on a global community, our opportunity to think, perceive, and communicate in diverse ways. We want our classrooms to music in our classrooms to be evident, consistent, and cumulative, and we want to develop confidence and contribute to the community throughout the performance of music. If we talk about those things and we publish those things, and I, as a director, and you, as a Booster Club person, can say, does this thing we're talking about fit our purpose statement? Does it fit our core values? Does it apply to our mission statement? Yes or no? Okay, then we can move on. Yeah.
One thing I noticed about all the core statements is in music, you got the guard.
Yep.
And there's so many people who think guard is not part of band, and that's a battle.
Yep.
They are. But yet, the core statements in music, and guard really doesn't.
Guard is a visual representation of the music.
Is there a way to word it so
Yes.
it's still like, music and movement?
Well, let me show you in the mission statement. I think we've addressed it a little bit. Okay. So the next one is our mission statement. Okay. It needs to capture fundamental purposes in a concise manner that typically requires several sessions of thought, reflection, brainstorming to craft the final draft. Okay. These are statements. This is really important. They're not goals of what you want to become, but rather the reason the organization exists. Okay? Mission statement defines why you exist. That then becomes the litmus for all the things that you do. Okay? Sample mission statement. Our mission is to enrich and support comprehensive music education experiences that inspire and prepare students with excellent skills, knowledge, and confidence to develop musical and visual competencies to contribute to community through music and engage in lifelong musical interests. Now, guard is a very important visual representation of the music component of what we do. And so what's hard about the guard element is because A, they're not often in class every day with all the other kids. B, they've not been a part of your community since 6th grade, growing together as a band community. And so they're getting into this game late in life, and so are their parents. And so it's a whole new beast to them that they don't quite understand because their learning curve is behind. It's not their fault. So part of what we need to do, and your point is really important, that as we develop our total band program, that we're A, inclusive, and when we talk later this afternoon in the organizational chart of the organization, we want to make sure we include guard representation. I'm talking about that this afternoon. But it's really important that we define all these different elements of how they focus on. Our goal is to use music as our tool of what we do, and that has visual representation. That's why we hire visual techs in competitive marching band, because there's a visual element to reinforce the music, and guard is an important part of that.
I was gonna say, if anybody questions it, get your score sheet for competitive field shows and stuff. That is one of the biggest categories for
Yeah, and
visual.
I don't think it's hard to prove. I just think that we don't enunciate and audiate and in writing do enough to. We kind of have to overdo it to help the guard feel included, because they're not entrenched in the way even percussionists are. We isolate percussionists a lot too, because we have staff for them and we have someone go help the guard, so they're not always with the band. And so there's lots of things that we do that create individualized things. So we just need to make sure we but let me ask you to read that again. Can you see if you had something like this that was your mission statement? Do you see how that would be of benefit to target all those random discussions that happen in your booster club and those tantrums that we get off and get sidetracked with? So your organization needs to set the goals, objectives to achieve the core values. Their general statement, these goals that we're talking about now, are general statements to accomplish. Okay, what do we want to accomplish? Where are we? Where do we want to be? Where we want to be, that's our goal. Okay? This is all pretty standard. I'm going to kind of move through this quickly, but here's an example of our goal as it relates to our booster club. Roles and responsibilities are to be defined and understood. I need a uniform chair. I don't know what the uniform chair is supposed to do. Then one of our goals became, where are we, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there? We need to create a goal to define those roles and responsibilities within the booster club. Create a reporting information, a way to report information to track the ongoing health and performance of the organization's business. Remember earlier when we were talking about we created some ideas, some action plans, but we weren't having a way to monitor what was going on. So that became a goal for our organization when we asked, where are we, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there? Now, after we have our goals, we need to have specific strategies. So the goal is what we want to do. The strategy is, how are we going to do it? We can have a goal to sell X number of dollars of fruit, and we're going to sell fruit every year. But our strategy to sell fruit and sell more fruit might change from year to year. So chances are when you develop your strategic plan, a lot of stuff is going to stay consistent all the way from year to year. The strategies are going to be the part that probably get modified the most or change or evolve over time. Okay? Now, that's what I just said. Okay? Now, let's look at some examples. Remember we said we're going to better define our roles and responsibilities. So one strategy is we're going to define our project liaison for alumni relations. And then we're going to define section liaison for each section in the marching band. Root, root, root. Anybody have bells and whistles going off? Project liaison for alumni. Do we have one of those? I don't know what that is. Section liaison. I don't know what that is. What is he talking about? Anybody have any bells going off of like, oh, maybe we need to make that a strategy for us too? I don't know. But that was our goal, was to what? Define roles and responsibilities, our strategy of, all right, so what things could impact us best first? Where are we going to start? Those are some strategies, okay? Now, we've got goals, we've got strategies, now we need action plan. We talked about it. Boosters are really great about meeting and eating and telling everybody how to do their job, and then we're talking about the same stinking thing next month because we didn't create an action plan of how we're going to make it happen, okay? So these are specific activities for each major function that we undertake to ensure it's effectively implemented by the strategy being achieved to achieve the goal. So here's some specific strategy. Define section liaison for each section of the marching band. The action, contact woodwind parents to enlist a liaison for each section. Ding, 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 here's the big part. Denise is taking ownership for what? Contacting the Woodwind parents, and she's going to do it by July 30th. So think about all those things that you talk about at a monthly meeting. If you created action items that were this accountable, that this person's going to own it and it's going to accomplish by this day, and someone monitors that, how much more effective your operation could be. Agreed? Hands up? Yes? All right, cool. You're still awake, some of you? So then we have to share the plan once we develop it. Okay? This is the what plan? The strategic plan we're talking about, the big picture, right? And we need to keep in mind greater planners regularly reflect the extent to which the goals are being met and whether action plans are being implemented. Have you... Then we need to evaluate, just like the circles we talked about earlier, our strategies and action plans. And then we need to decide, how do we improve it? And we revise it over a 3 to 5 year period. So that is our strategic plan. Our purpose, our core values, our mission statement. Create goals once we ask ourselves, where are we, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there? Define strategies to help us figure out how we're going to get there. Create some accountability by action plans. We need to provide some people to monitor those and evaluate. How many would you say, you know what, that's something we don't have very much in our organization? Well, if we created a plan, an action plan, we don't really, I mean, whose job would it be, if you will, to monitor and evaluate whether our action plan actually happens? That was my problem in my booster organization. See, I said, I want my booster club president to be my community cheerleader, and the person is the vision caster in the community, and make sure everybody else gets their job done and monitor and help regulate that. What's the problem with that? Type A manager, sunshiny cheerleader. Those two personalities usually don't exist in one body. Right? But that's how I'd had it set up. That's what I expected my booster club president to do. Isn't that the way it works in your program? Be the vision leader, make sure everybody gets their stuff done. Okay, that's why it doesn't work as thriving as it could. Because we're asking two conflicting responsibilities within one person. So, to me, that's where most of us have the biggest room for opportunity. Once we strategize and create a plan, most of us don't have a way to actually implement the monitoring and evaluating process. And if you stick with this for the course of the day, we're going to talk about how to do that in building our roles and responsibilities in the organization to accomplish that. Okay? So let me just show you some ways and tools. Remember about including talent and getting your talent in your organization? I am not a PowerPoint guru. I'm not an Excel guru. I am a musician. Okay? But this is one way our Booster Club corporate people said we're going to create a scorecard in PowerPoint. Okay? And can you see, here's our objective. Roles and responsibilities defined and understood. Yes? Then here's our strategy. Tells us who's owning it. And then when is it going to be done? And you can't see this because I didn't do it in color, but these are stoplights, red, green, or yellow. And a very quick 30 seconds in a booster exec meeting, you can look at this scorecard in PowerPoint and decide, what do we need to talk about? If everything's green or yellow, green means it's done, it's good. Yellow means it's not quite, but it's okay. And red means we've got a problem or we're having trouble. How many of us spend too much time every month talking about the same stinking stuff? Hallelujah, she says, yes. This helped us. We said, okay, submit your information, submit your scorecards to the Booster Club president the week before the meeting. He compiles the different ones. We go through the different objectives. We can very quickly, in 30 seconds, get a very quick assessment of the organization and where are we and what we need to really focus on to troubleshoot. Okay, it doesn't have to be done this way, mind you, but this is a useful tool that we discovered to make a difference. This score sheet and all these things are in the strategic plans Yeah. Here's another example. And these are all samples of the types of documents that are in the two books. Okay? A lot of us have agendas, right, for our meetings. Okay? So we decided to be a little more specific in our agenda. Okay, so here's an example. We're going to talk about a communication plan concept. And we're going to share it for the first time to talk about it. Everyone's going to understand the value and the need for the plan. The president is going to do the sharing, and we're going to allocate 10 minutes for that to happen. Then we're going to talk about communication needs. We're going to share and do some preparation and build a list of info needed for the board to be successful. And we're going to all do that for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to come back and develop an action plan. We're going to do some preparation. The director of communications is going to take 30 minutes and finalize the plans to determine who's going to own what. And then we're going to do a wrap-up, a share. The president's going to review and have 10 minutes, and that's our meeting. Now, where this becomes very helpful is, maybe it just happened at Harrison, but every once in a while, not very often, whatever, we'd get someone off on a tangent. We'd be talking about something like, how did we get here and why are we here so long? Right? So when we have this discussion, we can go, you know what, Gene, that's a really great idea. It's a really important topic. Would you mind meeting with Suzanne and seeing if you guys can come up with some suggestions on that for next month? We're a little bit behind on our agenda. It's a great important need, but can you work on that so that we can... So now you've not offended anybody, but it gives you a vehicle to keep plugging along and stay on target. Does that make sense, everybody? All right. Here's another scorecard we created. It's about all the fundraisers. So we create all the different fundraising things. What's our budget? Where are we year to date? What's our target? Where are we in the process? It's just a way to kind of keep track of all that in an easy how to look at it without waiting and going around and talking to everybody, let everybody speak up about their event. If everybody reports to the president in advance, you can use a document like this or whatever you want to report it, to show it in a composite. Again, then you can target, whoa, wait a minute, this is coming up. We're behind schedule here. Or we were $1,000 short, I see right here, from this fundraiser. How are we going to make that up? Okay? Questions about strategic planning? Yeah?
Can I just say that the fact that you said that it's not, shouldn't be questioning the director is worth the money, I think.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like I'm alone in thinking that, and that's how our organization has always been driven, that of course we question him, and I appreciate that.
Well, I think it's really important to look at it both sides. And it's not that we don't need to have dialogue and ask questions, but it's very easy for it to, maybe adversarially is a little bit too strong, but it becomes a we us, and there is no we us, it's a us. We're all here, okay? Very few people work as hard as your band directors do for the sake of your kids for the right reasons. The English teacher ain't doing it. Science teacher ain't doing it. They're great teachers, but they're not investing that much time and effort and coming summers to figure out how to do that.
I never get an email from any of the rest of them at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning like that past band.
Yeah,
Who just retired.
yeah. Other things, yeah.
I mean, as a band director, as far as questioning, what I've come to realize, I want to know what parents are frustrated about. Just not on the way to my car. Or in the middle of class, or in the middle of rehearsal, like setting up a meeting, because we know that the truth is, that conversation is going to be had.
Yeah.
And if it could be had with me at a predetermined time, could probably get in front of some things. Because the bigger your program gets, and the higher up you get, and the less you actually know what's going on. So most directors, I don't think have a problem with, a grievance.
And,
it's just timing.
and there are things that are problematic. Band directors, we're control freaks. We are. And there are going to be things that we feel very strongly about. And there are also things that are going on that we've given no thought to. It's just happened, and praise God it's happening. And having a discussion would be healthy, and it wouldn't threaten me, but it doesn't need to be it can be a healthy way, is my point. And so I think how we set up our purpose and mission statements empowers those types of discussions to stay the course, and that we stay the course together, I think is the key. Yeah.
Another thing about the mission statement, I'm a director too, but having that on paper to take to an administrator as a director, and so, because like a lot of times they feel like booster clubs, like athletic boosters, day boosters are competing for
Right.
resources for fundraising and everything, so the more you can have on paper to give to them, that they'll be able to back you.
Yeah. And now you've got resources and tools. Think about how many of you we're going to talk about next, I think, soon, about developing an army of volunteers. None of us have enough help, right? So think about it. If you walked in the door as that freshman parent, and now you've been presented with a purpose, core values, and a mission statement, and everything that we're talking about evolves around that, and we can find a way to help you plug in to do that, I think that could make a big difference in most of our organizations. So we need to take a break. And did you have a question? I'm sorry.
I did, especially with all these directors that are here. So the problem I have with my director is everything is a secret.
Yeah.
So he doesn't share anything with the band. I mean, we don't even really have performance dates until like the week before.
Oh.
How do I get them out of this shell of everything is up to me to do, and I don't really want your help?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit moving forward, but I believe it's all about developing relationships. And it goes back to, I'm the one that's held responsible for it. You don't know what history's happened, whether bridges have been burned, whether, it's hard to know. But to me, in that setting, it's frightening to think that we don't have communication. You're saying that to someone who published his entire annual calendar in March for the next school year. So that's like, what? But all that to say, anything like that, it's all, in my opinion, it's all about building relationships and changing the trust factor. Because there's been a causation that's brought us to a certain point. I'm overwhelmed, I don't know who to trust, so I only do it, or there's been bad history, there's some causal something. And the only way I know to really change that is not a quick fix, but it's building relationships and changing the relationship of trust.